Hey, what is up, everybody? I am back from Panama, the jungle, and I'm so excited to be here for another awesome edition of hashtag Event Icons. We are so excited to be here today because we're talking about one of my favorite topics of social media and digital marketing for events, something that I know a lot of you guys have been wanting to talk about. We have possibly the best panel ever to talk about it. So before we jump into that, I want to remind you guys that this is a co-created experience, and it's not just about me asking the questions to the guests and you guys listening on, but it is about you guys getting to ask the questions. So if you're tuning in live right now, I know there's a bunch of you guys. Be sure to ask questions in the chat pane over on the right-hand side, typing /Q, then your question, and it'll go right into our queue of questions. We'd love to hear from you and hear all the awesome questions that you have. If you're not tuned in live right now, very sad. You definitely have to be here because we do this every single Wednesday live on Blab, and it is your opportunity to ask your questions. So you definitely want to be here. And while we're talking a little bit about making an awesome experience, be sure to hit that tweet and Facebook button if you're awesome, and get as many people in here as possible. We'd love to have a great conversation, and the more event profs that we have in here, the better. So this is your opportunity to really share that with everybody and for us to get a chance to meet some of the best people in the events industry. So while we are jumping through all this, let's just get right on into the guests. They are just absolutely exceptional this week. So let's just jump right in. So first person that we have is Mr. Jason Allen Scott. So excited to have him here. Jason is actually the host of the Guest List podcast. He's the author of the Ventrepreneur series, which is all about entrepreneurs in the events industry, something I'm really passionate about as well. He's the founder of VenueMe. And something that you probably don't know as well is he's also the founder of Non-Invasives, which is all about cryotechnology, which if someone has a question about that, we'll let them jump into a little bit more. But mind-blowing that I didn't even know that you were doing all that stuff. So thank you so much for being here, Jason.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. All right. So one common theme that we had between Jason and also our next guest, Miguel Neves, sorry. I knew I was going to do that. Jason and Miguel, we both met at IMEX America this couple months ago now. In October, was it? October? It's all blurring together. And was so excited to meet these guys, had so much in common with them. I knew I just had to get them on the show as soon as possible. So that's why, and I learned that they both had this huge passion for social media, but something that not a lot of people know about Miguel is he actually manages all of the social for all of IMEX. And if you didn't know, right now IMEX has a total of 27,000 people going to between the Frankfurt conference, which has 15,000, and 12,000 people going to the Vegas conference, which is a very huge staple events for the events industry and the convention industry. So mad props for making that happen, Miguel. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's really cool to do that.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. All right. And last but not least, my very good friend, Jay Feitlinger. Jay and I actually go way back. We are both actively involved in the Entrepreneurs Organization, which is an absolutely cool organization all about helping entrepreneurs grow their businesses, making sure you have like-minded people around you. Very cool. And it's funny. So Jay and I actually met in the Accelerator program. And when Jay, I went to my first event, and Jay comes up to me and goes, "Hey, I know you." And I'm like, "I don't know who you are." He goes,
"Creepy.
You're that guy. You're the guy from Arizona Pro DJs who has that awesome Facebook page." Turns out that a week earlier or something like that, you had given a presentation featuring my company as like one of the best Facebook page examples back when I was still figuring out using social media as like a guerrilla marketing tactic. So we instantly clicked, and Jay's by far one of the smartest minds I've ever met in digital marketing, and also really cool. Is Jay actually is not in the events industry per se, but actually he runs a digital marketing agency called StreamCan Interactive. So I wanted to bring someone actually from outside the industry to also bring in perspective to say, this is what we're doing to make digital marketing better and everything like that. And Jay's just absolutely brilliant. So I'm just so excited to have you here today, Jay.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome. So I want to just jump right on in these questions, get this conversation going. Again, if you guys have anyone in the audience has any questions, type /Q, then your question, and it'll go right into our question pane. But I'm so excited to be here. So let's go. Let's just go into the questions. So let's start off with something super duper simple, which is what got you into the events industry. So let's start off with Jason. What got you into the events industry?
I had a friend who I worked with previously when we consulted for gym membership, and we did very well. We were number one in the world. We had the most sold pre-sales memberships in history. It was a gym group called Holmes Place, and she called me up and she said, "I'm working in events, and you would do really, really well in this industry. It's about knowing people. It's about sales, it's about creation, it's about ideas, it's about the shared economy, back before shared economy was a term." And I hit up every single person I knew who had anything coming up and said, "I'd love to do something." And I managed to get an event, a pre-premiere, might have been post-premiere now, for Miami Vice, which I thought, because I'm old, that Miami Vice was based on a TV show with like rolled up jackets and pastel colors and no socks wearing people in Miami. It turned out to be a really dark, scary film with Jamie Foxx and Colin Farrell. And I did that. I did pretty well. I managed to get 5 job interviews. They had got all 23 of my CVs that I'd sent forward. And next thing I knew, I was working within the events industry, and I've kind of tried to put my foot in every possible position that it'll get in within the industry on the way.
Wow, awesome. And then just side note, what got you into cryotechnology? That's another just random question that I have.
No. It's an excellent question. So I'm obsessed with anything startup. I love the startup world. Obviously, events is my passion, but entrepreneurship is my passion as well. Hence the title, The Eventrepreneur. And I love the idea of cryo, probably from when I saw it in Terminator 2. And I saw the guy dissolve, and I thought, what an amazing idea. And a couple of years later, I heard about athletes. I did an event for Great Ormond Street Hospital, and I managed to get the entire English football team to come down. And they were talking about going into these cryo chambers where it sped up therapy. And I thought, that's really interesting. And I started following that. And then I started going into lots of entrepreneurial meetings. And eventually I got linked up with a couple of pieces, one in non-invasive technology, in cryolipolysis, freezing fat and making it go away. The next one is something called eco-legacy, which is the opposite of cremation. It freezes you down to your very, very basic pieces without any of the problems that it causes the ozone and the environment. And I've become a shareholder ever since of 3 different cryo technology companies and an investor.
Wow. Craziness. Well, I think you're going to go down as the one of the few or the only guest that ever is involved in cryotechnology and events on our show. So awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being here. Miguel, so we got to hear this. So how'd you get involved in IMEX? How did you get involved in doing all the social for this massive conference?
That's a long story. I sort of got involved first with MPI, Meeting Professionals International. Before that, I was in the music business. I used to do record producing. I used to do live sound. I used to be a musician. I played bass, sorts of stuff like that. I didn't even know there was an events industry. I kind of stumbled upon that with the MTV European Music Awards that came to Portugal, where I'm from, in Lisbon, in 2005. And a friend of mine was working for MTV at the time and got me the kind of runner job. I kind of realized there was this whole industry of people running events of all sorts. And I tried to start up a company, tried to be an entrepreneur and a kind of startup craze, but a little bit before everybody started a startup, and really actually failed miserably. I didn't know what I was doing. So I ended up in London doing a master's degree in conference and events management as sort of like, well, let's go figure out how I'm supposed to be doing all this kind of stuff. Started volunteering a lot with MPI and ended up getting a job through just like showing up at events and volunteering and doing a lot of that kind of stuff. And then 3 years into a job with an agency in California, actually, I'd been to IMEX a few times, and I met my previous boss, Dale, just at an event. I was speaking on social media probably, and chatted to her, and it was like, oh yeah, I might be looking for a new opportunity. And a few months later, she called me up and said, hey, there's a job here, come and interview. It was great. I worked for IMEX for 2 years doing a thing called the Future Leaders Forum, which is an event, like a side event that they do for students, which isn't just at the IMEX shows, but we do it all around the world. And then I sort of started helping out with the social media. And at some point, Karina, our CEO, was like, you're doing okay at this social media thing. Do you want to sort of do this full time? And I didn't feel like I could say no. So I said yes. And that was about 2.5 years ago now. And yeah, it's been a great ride. I think, like you were saying earlier, I don't think I have all the answers. I think we're always experimenting. So I just love the social media world and having, a cool community to ask questions and try stuff out. So this is an experiment for me. So I just love it.
Awesome. I think that goes to show like that, sometimes to get really awesome things, you have to put a little bit of work up front, like do a little bit of volunteering, get involved. We talk about that a lot, like in the industry associations, is that, hey, sometimes, you got to get on that, be on the board, volunteer your time. And then that's when you kind of get this karma that comes back to you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Very cool. All right. So then we have the black sheep over here, Mr. Jay Feitlinger. So Jay, obviously you're not involved in the events industry, but I want to hear your story as far as what got you into marketing and everything like that, starting up String Can.
Wow, good question. I guess for me, it probably stems to launching companies. This is my 10th company that I've launched. And the first few that I had did not perform extremely well, mainly because I didn't really have a good lead generation revenue system in place. And I found that traditional marketing with things like Yellow Pages back in the days and whatnot was just really expensive and hard to measure. And I just, for the nature of, needing to pay bills, I needed to figure out a way to scale my company. And I just found digital marketing to be extremely interesting and a lot more manageable and metrics driven. And I just had a lot of success in leveraging that channel. I think, Will, as you know, I started getting really big into social media, and I had a bunch of retail clients. I started helping them with how to monetize their presence on social media. I launched one of the first social commerce apps through Facebook that I sold that company. And that's what I used to fund the launch of this company. So I guess for me, it's all about, generating results for companies. And I just found that digital marketing is really the way to go.
Awesome. And what would you say that, you do on a day-to-day basis now, as far as what you're kind of doing and what your agency does?
I get paid to play online. So it's kind of not a bad excuse. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot a lot, which is kind of cool. I guess for me, I love change. Obviously, being that I've launched, so many companies. And that's probably why I think the whole digital marketing landscape is just so interesting. So being able to every day getting up and, getting online and finding new ways to streamline a company, make them, faster, better, growing is just, I find to be super exciting and inspiring. And that's really probably the main focus for me.
Cool. Very cool. Well, so excited here to have you guys here because you guys are just so brilliant and, smartest minds around this. So, I think a lot of times when talking about social media, marketing, it's really exciting to talk about what the newest app is, what the, blab and how exciting it is to get in front of people and things like that. But ultimately, marketing's purpose is to drive sales, correct? Right. So, more awareness around this to eventually drive sales. So a lot of times event organizers struggle with this idea of just getting butts in seats, right? We talk about this all the time is that, it's really great if you have this awesome presence. It's really awesome if you have all this great content at the events, this amazing experience. But if you're not getting people butts in seats, things are not going to go well. So my question to you guys is, what would you say is kind of an overall go-to strategy that you have for getting people to attend events? And let's start off with Miguel. You guys have an event that's really huge. It's free for people to attend. You think that you'd almost just naturally get people to attend, but you guys do a lot to get people to come to IMEX. What's your go-to strategy for getting people to attend events?
I think both in social media and both, kind of as IMEX as a company, I think probably the most important one is our partnerships. And I think maybe you're looking for an answer sort of like, oh, we have this great email list and we send these great emails. But I think it all really comes down to the personal relationships. And actually, so we have this thing, the hosted buyer program, where we actually pay for people's flights and accommodation if they plan a number of meetings and if they have business. And that all goes through intermediaries. So it's all our exhibitors that sort of invite their best clients. So we set up a structure where we get our partners to invite the people that they do business with. So we sort of make sure that there's something in it for everyone. And I think it's the same thing on social media. And I think that sort of works for any event. Blasting out email lists is, I think, my weapon of least choice. It's like the thing I definitely recommend people not to do. It's more about building those relationships and getting different people to have different angles and different reasons to come to the event. And it's, building that network, and then people just, when you do contact them, then it means a lot more than an anonymous email. So network, partnerships, whatever you want to call it, I think that's my key.
Awesome. Jason, Jay, do you guys have anything you want to fill in with what you guys think is your go-to strategy? Difficulties, everybody, but we're going to jump straight back into the questions. So Jay was sharing with us his go-to strategy for getting butts in seats and people to attend events. So you want to go ahead, Jay?
That'd be great. So I guess for me, being more of an attendee and or a speaker at the events rather than one that promotes events, my big recommendation is really know your audience. I love to go to events with like-minded people, and it's just frustrating when you're not a good prospective attendee and you get promoted to come, and you come to an event and there isn't value for it, and you just really wouldn't enjoy the experience. So that's really my main recommendation, is just know who you're trying to target, know the value they'll get out of the events. And then as you're working with them, engage with them, and they'll share their experience. That way, then, if you want to repeat that event, there'll be a lot more likely that they'll want to go back and or tell other people about it.
Awesome. Perfect. And I think we'll save the question I have, but I would love for us to eventually talk about as well, how do you find out who your audience is? Because I think that's a hugely important topic to talk about, and we can jump a little bit further into that. Before we go into that, we had Jason. Jason has not answered the question yet, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Although that was a great answer. So I got asked this very question yesterday by Google, at Google. And to highlight it, I said exactly that. My number one was know your audience. Who should you target? What information do they need? I said following a project timetable. Anyone in events knows the importance of planning 6 months or 6 weeks out, whether that's 200 attendees or 20 attendees. Knowing your major milestones and your deadlines before you begin. The fact that it's incredibly important to create compelling content. That timing is everything. The best days for events, Tuesdays through Thursdays, best times a year for the UK, February through June, September through early November, outside of the Christmas period. And that creates invitations that work. The first rule regarding invitations is to sell your event and not your product or service. That personalized invitations usually get the best response. Usually, especially with an executive audience, be sure to include enough content for the recipient to measure the value of the event, which motivates them to register, to send multiple invitations and a variety of media. And finally, you should provide multiple response options like, web, phone, email, tweets, ways for them to get back to you, and then to capture every lead and their response, including regrets, so you know a way to get back to them. I find this to be a great way to improve attendance to events.
Awesome. I love your guys' responses so far. I think that it goes to show you that I'm agreeing with you guys that hopefully I'm doing something right on my end as well. So thank you guys. Very cool. So, I'm primarily want to center this topic around social media, since we talked a little bit about content marketing last week with the guys from Bozobo, eTouches, as well as Laura from Social Tables, talking everything from like how to use content to basically promote your events to how to use content marketing to promote your business. But wanted to kind of tweak this a little bit more towards social media. And I think a lot of times we get excited about trends in social media, the newest, coolest feature of a social media network, the coolest, newest platforms, including Blab. But the thing I'm really curious about is a lot of times when people are doing social media for events, they think it's just as simple as monitoring a hashtag and responding to inquiries that come in, just doing some simple monitoring and response, maybe sharing a little bit of content here and there. But how do you guys think that events need to be using social media beyond the monitoring one single hashtag and responding to incoming inquiries? I'm really open to just all over the place. Feel free to share your tips and tricks and things that you guys think that you should need to be. So why don't we start with Jay? Tell us a little bit about how you think that events should be using social media. Maybe like one quick tip, and then we'll just kind of jump around all over the place. Oh, looks like you're muted, Jay.
Well, you guys can't read my lips there. I don't have Miguel's wine over here, so I'm struggling. So I guess for me, it's a case-by-case basis. Obviously, the larger the event, the more challenge it becomes. I think it comes down to roles and responsibilities. So, if you have a large event, that's going to be a very engaged audience. You need to have the people in place with their roles and responsibilities defined up front, well before the day of the event. And then just trying to find a really creative way to monitor the social feeds. Unfortunately, not everyone will use the hashtag, may have missed recommendations for a hashtag. They might make comments about the speaker or the event location. And so I think that the social media ambassadors, whoever is managing the social media content, need to come up with a really solid strategy around not just the hashtag, not just the speakers, but also content topics, and then setting up really solid monitoring strategy around that. And obviously timeliness of engaging is very, very important. And then also making sure that they have a very unique voice and is not overly promotional. I know I've been to a bunch of events, and when the social media people are, trying to oversell, maybe selling the speaker's books or various different side events, it just really turns me off. I'm already at the event. I've already paid a lot of money, not just in the conference ticket, but for hotel and travel. I'm done being sold to. And I really want to be there for learning, education, and networking. And I just would prefer that the conference ambassadors facilitate that kind of engagement.
Awesome. Feel free to jump in, guys. I'd say one tip that I have that I've seen, you're making me put on my attendee hat for a second. I was thinking about this is how you can use social media to provide some like last minute information as well. Things that make my experience a little bit better. So for example, a lot of times when we're going to conferences, we're traveling. So knowing things like, for example, that, hey, the shuttles are a little bit behind, or, hey, when you get into town, be sure to check out this awesome pizza place. Sharing kind of like the cool information to make my experience a little bit better. I always like to see that as well.
Yeah, I was going to add, I guess it's quite generic, but I think do whatever the meets the objectives of the event. Because I think sometimes you miss that. You get so worked up on social media, like promoting and telling people stories and sort of, especially the promotional angle that, I always think people ask me what the objective is with IMEX. And I'm like, you know what, if social media doesn't exist, but everybody has a really great event, I'm happy. Then my job's going well. So it's like, it's not supposed to be an event in itself. It's supposed to help people make the most of the event, especially an event like IMEX, which is all about face-to-face business and kind of meeting on the show floor and talking about deals. So, we learn a lot from sort of our statistics and our analysis of what happens every year. And Twitter is our main channel. And one of the things that I learned, for example, is that there's a big spike at like 6 a.m., people waking up, and there's a period between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. that is started from people who are gearing up going towards the show. And that is a key time for any sort of informational message. That's when you have to sort of provide that information. When people are already on the show floor, yeah, some people are on social media, but mostly they're actually in real life talking to people and shaking hands. So they're not looking at their phones the whole time. So it took us a few years to sort of figure that out. And then we also call it cocktail hour. But from 4 o'clock onwards, do not give any sort of useful information. So it's like cocktail hour, it's selfie time, that's great. But don't try to give any serious piece of information. Save that for the 6 a.m. period. So, I guess that, that makes sense in hindsight. But, a few years ago, we didn't think about that. And now it makes sense.
And how did you guys collect that data?
We literally sort of looked at the number of tweets and like especially replies and engagements throughout the day with I think it was can't remember. I think Tweet Reach was the one we used, but we just analyzed it, and then we just looked at our tweets and sort of kind of tried to kind of compare that and go, okay, so what's going on here? Why are people not clicking on any of these links? What's happening here? And it's the nature of an event. I think in an event where there's more people in a closed space, so there's sort of like a speaker, a keynote speaker where everybody's at, I think it's different because you have more opportunities there where everybody sort of gives themselves permission to look at their phone. At IMEX, because it's sort of a lively trade show from the get-go, there's no sort of like dark room moment. And so you just have to like, okay, people are in their room, putting their clothes on, they're checking their social feeds. As soon as they get going, forget about it. They're just on the move. And yeah, that's sort of the assumption that we make now, and I think it's a much more educated assumption.
Awesome. And last one.
Yeah, sorry. All I was going to say is I think Jay will agree on this, that when it comes to a business and when it comes to events, it's exactly what Miguel said. It all comes down to timing. Timing is so important to everything that you do.
Awesome. I love that idea that like really understand the data portion of it. I mean, especially because we have so many tools out there to, like we were talking, you mentioned Tweet Reach, there's just so many tools out there. And then now we're in a day and age too, where remember when Twitter first came out, you posted a tweet. I mean, you look at like Instagram for the while, you could only post you had to post it from the app immediately. You didn't have the ability to schedule, but now we can schedule everything. Is utilizing scheduling tools to provide those messages at the appropriate time rather than when you're writing it, right? Do you guys have any other tips that you guys have for in general about engagement related to social media at events?
I can add one, but I don't know, Jason, I don't know, you haven't really chimed in on this, but I interrupted Jay as well.
No, it's fine.
No, go for it, guys. I'll go last. I'm happy.
So I'll just say one. We have a social team, a roving kind of reporter thing at IMEX, and we used it for many years to sort of take pictures and selfies and things. And actually, that sort of works, but it's not that popular. And what we found is now we have a sort of a brain person that kind of sits in the office and has like a WhatsApp group with the people that are on the show floor. And we have that person engage with the exhibitors and with the people and sort of have conversations. So almost sort of direct our social team and direct the engagements. So I guess it goes back to that idea that great content and like selfies and whatever is great, but when you get the engagement going, that's really when the magic happens, when people see, oh yeah, they're responding to us, they're kind of directing things, and that's working really well, and it's been really popular. And I think that can be applied to all sorts of different events and different activities.
Awesome. Jay?
Ditto.
Sorry. It's not ghost. That's not the quotable line.
I'm like, wow, that was awesome. Honestly, I was going to say exactly the same. I'm not going to add any more value. That was perfect.
Awesome. And then Jason, anything you want to add?
One of the most successful events we did, which combined social media, was for Unilever. It was Lynx. It was the Fallen Angel campaign. And what we did is we did multiple floors in a penthouse apartment in London, and we created different areas for different social media opportunities. And that was great. So there was an opportunity for a tweet wall. There was an opportunity for Instagram shots. Created a bed, and we had a model lying in the bed, and you could get into the bed with the model and just kind of shows your shoulders. Everyone looked like they were naked in bed. We had an angel room with all sort of feathers falling from the sky, and that had a little hashtag, and people took photographs next to that. And we just found many, many ways to connect. We also had an opportunity whereby every time they bought a drink, it would take a photograph of them, it would link it to their Facebook, and then it would say, this person is drinking Dora Dam gluten-free beer at this event right now. And we found that as far as both as a content piece, but as well as an engagement piece and an experiential piece, was incredibly popular.
Awesome. So Alex in the audience actually had a really, really great question. And I know this is probably more skewed towards Miguel, is that he asked, is there a reason why you hide the person in an office instead of doing like a social media hub on the trade show floor? I guess let's talk about the structure of social teams for events. Jay brought it up as well, knowing the duties that that person has. Do you guys have any recommendations? We'll start with Miguel, like as far as how you structure your team, and what do you have them roam the floor? Do you have them taking pictures? Are they all funneling messages up to a single person? What should the structure of your team be?
So I sort of answered Alex's question already. We did have a social hub one year, like a little kind of mini thing on the show floor, but it didn't really prove that popular. And we had like a live chat camera. So there was basically 4 people on laptops for 3 days. It really didn't do anything for anyone. So we just like, okay, that's cool. We tried that, didn't work. The social team, we go back to sort of that timing thing. So one thing I like to do with the social team is sort of highlight the features of the event with the social team. So spend a couple of hours just saying, hey, there's some cool stuff happening here. There's speakers over here. There's exhibits here, that kind of thing. And then sort of when the mood around IMEX relaxes a little bit more, then there's more engagement. There's more group photos. There's more that. And that's sort of how we structure it. So I've gone through like mapping out like 80 things that they have to do in one day. And now I've sort of reversed that process and gone, well, here's sort of the overall feel that we want for this kind of communication. And part of it is also because we use sort of student volunteers wherever we can. We do have some paid staff as well. And part of it is also really interesting to get their impression. So they're usually people that are kind of interested in the industry and understand a little bit, but maybe not everything. And sort of having them sort of wander into a busy show floor and go, okay, what's going on here? Let me kind of explore that. That's kind of cool as well. And so we're trying to build that first impression or sort of like basic human impression of a busy show floor into the communication that we get from that. So I try to keep it quite loose, actually.
Awesome. And then Jay, do you want to talk a little bit about structures of teams?
Well, I guess, from my perspective, I have, or our firm has been hired a few times to help promote events. And I guess, again, it comes back to the whole strategy side. I think you need to understand the comfort level of the attendees. So as a speaker and or attendee at conferences that I attend, often they're like digital marketing related. So in theory, then the people that attend those conferences are very social media savvy. I find that those kind of conferences I go to, the actual attendees do the job for the conference organizers, where I'm sure you guys have seen that, where they're live tweeting at every major interesting component of the speaker, which I find to be very valuable. And so I know for me, as an attendee, I always try to figure out who are the very active social media people, and I'll follow them instead of actually following the event organizers. That being said, though, for the clients that have hired our firm to help them with their event marketing, once we understand that, some of their attendees might not be as active and or comfortable in being creators of content, that's when we'll actually send people to the event that understand the content, and they'll act on behalf of an ambassador to help share information and or trying to direct people of interesting topic and or asking questions to get engagement started. I think some events, just people need to be the first in line to start the content sharing, and that's really, I think, why it's so important to really think through way ahead of the events of what you're trying to accomplish.
Very cool. Jason, anything to add?
No. Jay stole all my lines. So thanks for
pretty
that,
good
Jay.
today, stealing each other's
I know, everyone can steal each other's ideas. Awesome. So Alex had a follow-up question that I think is really important to ask because, everyone's on a tight budget, especially for first-time events. They don't have a budget to bring on like an agency sometimes or to hire the best social media experts. So Alex asked, is it worth investing in trained social media experts? Someone, for example, like Miguel, to come in to run your event versus bringing in student volunteers. Do you guys recommend the idea of bringing in student volunteers? See any caveats with that or anything like that?
I'm going to leave this to someone better to answer, so probably Jay or Miguel, but I've always been a fan of Stalin's remark when referring to womanizing, which is quantity has a quality all of its own. And I think that what he meant by that is sometimes you can just throw a lot of bodies on it and it works. We've done events, we did a concert in the Middle East during the Formula One, where we got lots and lots of students all tweeting live as things were happening, and we had a fantastic response. Now, could I have had that by 6 trained social media experts? Probably. Would it have had as much reach? Would it have had so many different voices creating different types of content all on the same piece? I don't think it would have.
Awesome.
I guess so from my perspective, I'm going to God, my team's going to kill me. I'm going to remove my string can agency marketing hat on for a second. And talk about it from an attendee point of view, because that's probably what's most important. I love the authentic, natural kind of voice. I think it's getting easier and easier nowadays to cut through the noise and to tell if some things are scripted. And unfortunately, when organizations hire interns that have lack of practical business experience and or passion or knowledge in the event contents, they just come across very scripted, and it's just a little awkward sometimes. And I'm less likely to engage with that versus the more raw, natural content. I love when people are sharing content around that. So I guess, obviously it's a case-by-case basis depending upon the intention of the events. I just feel it's really, really important to try to allow organically things to happen. And if they're not happening, trying to find ways to create encouragements. And if you're going to hire people, they need to have a really strong understanding of social media, but not just social media, but also PR. I've been at events where there, of course, it might be a crisis, not always a serious one, but maybe things like electricity went out or a change of venue. Some people are not just very comfortable with knowing how to guide that kind of conversation. And I think if you have more business practical experience of knowing how on the fly, really fast think on your feet, I think I'll do a much better job. And obviously hiring an intern out of school to save a couple bucks seriously could impact the brand and or future attendees.
Awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it really depends what you're looking for. I was at MPIWEC this year in San Francisco, and there was a great speaker talking about the collaborative economy, and he had a blog post about it, and he had this cool graphic on the screen, the collaborative honeycomb, and I tweeted that because I just found like his blog post, and I was very quickly kind of tweeting it, and I tweeted that within about 30 seconds in mentioning it, and I had like 8,000 impressions on my tweet. I had 48 likes and all sorts of stuff. But that was a very kind of like specific, everybody was focusing on this one point that the speaker was making. And suddenly I gave anybody who was on Twitter on that hashtag that piece of content. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is if you're going to pay for something, then if you can find these very specific moments when you're really adding something to the event, then absolutely. But if you just want sort of, images, impressions, cool comments and things like that, then I think it's probably just as valuable to tap into the people who are organically just out of what they're finding exciting about an event and talking about it, rather than trying to like pay someone to like kind of figure it out and kind of figure a way to get this like maximum reach. I do think that just what people are really feeling, that's what's going to create the magic. And a couple of years ago, we had this thing like we decided not to do any selfies at IMX. And then suddenly it sort of became the show of the selfies. And we sort of got on the bandwagon very quickly, like, whoa, everybody's taking selfies. Everybody's got a selfie stick. Let's just make sure we kind of retweet and share the stuff that people are doing. And that was great because it was like this real kind of quick, like, we really misjudged this. But it's great because people are just doing it because they want to, not because we're creating competitions or anything like that. So, I guess it really depends on what you're looking for.
Awesome. So speaking of selfies, let's talk about a very, this is obviously a weekly show. So I want to right into a very, very tactical thing, which is this huge platform that obviously blew up, came out of nowhere, which is Snapchat. And, got a question to ask very specifically to Miguel is if IMX was going to bring in Snapchat. But I thought it would be interesting for us to discuss Snapchat and its involvement in events. What do you guys feel? How do you guys feel about Snapchat? Have you guys seen it integrated in your events? Have you seen anyone do it really well? All that sort of stuff, since that's obviously one of the most booming platforms right now. Miguel, you want to start with how would that? Why don't we start with
it was an IMX question.
IMX and Snapchat.
Sure. I sort of answered Alex's question. We're sort of looking at Snapchat. I think the thing with Snapchat is like a lot of these channels, they sort of reserve special features only for certain events or certain companies. So, I guess if we had access to the sort of open Snapchat where you can do those like, mega snaps, I think that would be a different thing. From a user, I think it's cool. I don't know if our audience is quite right for it because of it being such a business focused show, but we're definitely looking into it. But I was just saying to Alex, there's also some really cool video platforms that are more kind of sharing engaged, like that Snapchat when there's a big company doing it, where everybody shoots a little video, sends it in, then you sort of collate and kind of co-create the show video. So I'm probably more excited about something like that, where people really feel like they can be part of the kind of final video of the event, rather than sort of our Snapchat that probably will have a relatively small audience compared to the other channels that we're on around IMEX.
Go ahead, Jason. You got any thoughts on Snapchat?
I
Jason.
actually wrote this to A. Platson earlier. I was saying that I've always thought Snapchat's demographic was 18 to 24. I think he wrote that I was actually off, that it was now something like, I don't want to misquote him, so I'm going to say 18 to 34. It's somewhere in here. Yes, he came back and said it's going up. It's now 25 to 40 as an age group. Now, forgive me if you're under 18 and listening to the show, but people who sent me Snapchat pics was dick pics. I don't need to see any of that, so I've stayed way off Snapchat. I won't allow anyone on my team on Snapchat. But I have seen a major growth in it. Where I see that more happening is Periscope, because Periscope is now built straight into Twitter. It'll be a live feed. It's immediate. I think for events, we're so visually driven that Periscope seems like an obvious extension of what we're doing as a social media. Do I think Snapchat works? You know, Snapchat was invented for the dick pic because it would disappear after 20 seconds and you couldn't work out whose dick it was you saw 2 seconds ago. And then all of a sudden someone came up with another social media that took a picture of your Snapchat so you could look at it for longer. No, when I was in the States now, when I was in San Francisco and Santa Cruz, they were all talking about Snapchat and how cool it was. But the moment you sort of sat down and explained to them Instagram, they all went, oh, Instagram's a lot cooler.
Yeah.
Mind blown. So I was like, thanks, I'll see you on IG. I have more faith in Instagram, Periscope, and Twitter than I do in the constant growth and expansion of Snapchat.
Awesome. And then, Jay, do you have any thoughts on Snapchat?
You said dick 7 times.
I noticed my numbers have just increased.
All right, you get some props just for saying dick 7 times. I think that's
seriously. We went like X-rated within like 13 minutes. I love it. I guess, Will obviously know this about me. I really struggle with all these shiny objects. It's so hard. And which is weird, I'm one of those guys that loves the shiny objects. If it's out there within probably a day, I'm on it and I'm all excited about it and it's super fun. I just think it's really a slippery slope. And so what I think we need to do is really, again, back to the whole audience side. Whoever is organizing the event, as much as possible, the better you can, survey or poll your audience and figure out what social media channels or platforms they're comfortable in, they're already on, they're engaged in. Ideally, what you want to do is encourage the activity to happen there, kind of fish where the fish are at. If you're managing an event and you launch the event with some new shiny objects like Snapchat or whatever it might be, educating the audience to get comfortable with that is going to distract them from why they're there. And so as much as I love various tools like the Snapchat and Instagram and all the other things out there that you could do, I just say, play it safe, at least have a solid strategy around the channels or platforms where your audience already is at and kind of go there is what I would say start with first. Obviously, Miguel and Jason probably can talk this a lot better than I could, but I know for me, I have my go-to things. I go to the events when I'm actually listening and learning. I use Evernote. I will, share my thoughts and comments typically via Twitter. I stay away from various things like Snapchat and whatnot because I just don't find that everyone's already on it at the events, and it's just a waste of my time trying to convince them why they should get on there. And it's me and 5 other people. It's just very, very distracting sometimes.
Awesome. And then Jay, you brought up a solid good point. I want to circle back to a previous question that I kind of wanted to wait on a little bit. And I knew you were going to mention about the audience and serving the audience, so it's totally a leading question on my behalf. But I want us to talk a lot about how do we find our audience? How do you know who your audience is? How do you build that know exactly who to use, because then obviously that tells you what platforms you use, as we kind of mentioned a couple of times. So Jay, can you tell us a little bit about, how do you find your audience, what that's all about? What's that process kind of look like?
Well, I guess for me, you guys are in like the hardest industry I could think of. There's just so much real-time noise happening. It's just very, very complex. And not having focus and clarity around what you're trying to accomplish, I think, is dangerous. So what we do at our agency is we specialize in what we call persona development. So I'm sure you've all heard of that before, but basically it's understanding your avatars, the fictional representation of who your ideal audience is. And everything you do is tailored around them, not about what you want to do. And so based upon the audience, that's what you'd focus on. Now, it's so much easier to do this if you have had an event before. So again, if you've done an event and you want to improve upon it, which almost every event that I've been to, it's not uncommon to get a survey feedback after the event. But the challenge is people get home, they're exhausted, they get back into their real world situation, they're trying to figure out which business card goes to which person. There's just so much going on post event. So the critical thing to do is have people responsible during the events for generating feedback. And it's not this big formal scary thing of sitting down with me for an hour and asking me a bunch of scripted questions. It needs to be very natural over a glass of wine, probably with Miguel. And just really kind of just understanding their needs. And what you basically do is you gather all the key data. That's awesome. I'm so jealous. You gather all the key data about their pain points, why they're at the events, what value they're finding, what value they're not finding. If they were to come again, what they'd want to see changed. And then you jump in more tactics. What platforms are they on? Which ones are they most likely to want to use to share content and or learn? It's all those kind of things. And then from all that data, you basically develop ideal personas. But with any event, no matter how small it is, you're going to have more than one persona. Everyone's going to these various different events for different reasons. And I'm sure obviously Miguel and Jason can talk to this a lot better than I could. But, I've been to events where you definitely could pick out the people that are there for the networking, people that are there for learning. You got the introverts for the extroverts. There's just different types of people and personality psychographics going on. And so what you want to really do is develop a structured strategy around, okay, here is persona A, here's persona B, and you're developing strategy on how to engage with them in a very unique, relevant, personalized way.
Awesome. Miguel or Jason, anything you guys want to add to that as far as how to find your audience?
Miguel?
No, I think personas are great. I don't think we probably don't do as structured of a job in that, but I think personas are great, and sort of getting to know your audience, I guess, is like the core message of that. I'd probably say, I don't know if this is completely off topic, but LinkedIn groups are a great place to sort of probably reach people that you don't quite know. With IMEX, sorry to go back to IMEX, but I guess that's the example that I live with 24/7 almost, but I find it really interesting. Sometimes I reach a group of event planners from a specific location or something like that. And, sometimes I'm surprised that they don't know that IMEX exists. And maybe I'm just assuming that everybody knows IMEX or whatever. But it really feels interesting when there's this like really active community and suddenly they have no knowledge of it. And somebody like finds out about it and they're like, wow, there's this cool event. And it can really be interesting to see what they kind of tap into first as well. Like, it's not just like there's an event, but it's like, oh, there's this specific thing that happens at that event and I'm really interested in it. And, that bit's really interesting for us. And sometimes we don't really know how to change that into something that we can sell or market, but it's really interesting to kind of see what angle was really interesting to this particular group. And I think that personas sort of exercise is definitely, that taps into that and kind of understanding that what is it that makes people excited about the event, and super valuable to us.
It's funny, Jay mentioned the word avatar. I'm, oh, bless you, Miguel. Hannah Montana.
Sorry, that was right into
I was talking to a huge venue in London, an iconic venue in London, and they were talking about this exact question. And I used Jay's remark, because I'm a John Lee Dumas fan, and John Lee Dumas talks about knowing your avatar. And they could not get their heads around it. It was something that made no sense. The idea of looking after one perfect client or one perfect attendee or one, and it was interesting, kind of sort of reverse engineering and explaining it backwards, that each separate event that they had at this particular venue had its own avatar. You know, a Comic-Con would have your cosplayers and your gamers and if you broke them up, it was easier to talk to them. It was easy to find the right channel that spoke to them. It was easy to speak their language, to understand sort of all the little things that go into that. So yeah, I agree on exactly what Jay said and Miguel said. Hashtag IMEX is great.
Major props.
Awesome. So we only got a little bit of time left, unfortunately, with the technical difficulties. I know these guys got to leave very, very soon. So I want to wrap up with 3 more questions. So first of all, the question I want to start with is, what event do you think is doing social media and digital marketing right? And if you could share that event, just so then that way we have some great examples to kind of go by.
Wow.
It's a hard question.
Cutting. You can't handle the truth.
So the question was, which event's doing it right?
Yeah, doing it the right way.
In which part do you mean by that, doing it the right way?
I mean, what if you were to say, like, hey, here's the ideal example of who is, you know, like all those things that you're talking about that we talked about a little bit earlier as far as what people should be doing, you know, who is doing that already right now that people can kind of look to be like the shining example, who knows their audience really well and everything like that. So Alex stole mine, which was Inbound.
Yeah.
So I think they do a really, really great job.
For me, Fiat. So I was lucky enough to do a series of events for Fiat last year. The launch of I don't know what it is. They kept saying it in Italian. I never even bothered to learn what it was, like the Fiat Concerto XX Quarto. And what they did was they did a variety of small events and then a couple of very large catching events. So for the smaller events, they had the cars drive through parts of Italy. They had huge engagements. They had social media opportunities. And then in each major city, they did a huge event with Dynamo the Magician, where he made a car disappear, or we made a car appear with him sitting inside it. It was all big speak-worthy sort of events, but it made you go to these smaller events every time they popped up in your town because you want to know what else were they doing. And they understood their, I don't know about, they understood their market. They understood exactly what they wanted to do, and they understood the result of what they wanted to do, which was get people to come and try the car. And it kept happening. People kept saying, well, I'll try it. And when we looked at the statistics after the events, after the series of them, everything was up. The attendance was up. The amount of people, the website was up. More test runs were taken in showrooms throughout both Italy and the UK. And it was a multi-channel thing. We used PR agencies, social media agencies, event agencies. But it worked. It worked really well. So I'm excited to see what Fiat does going forward in 2016.
Awesome. I was saying in chat, but that Dynamo event that you worked on was a huge inspiration for another event that I worked on for another car brand that I can't talk about, but it was like hugely, we were like, oh my gosh, we basically kind of stole the same idea. So I love it. So.
What was Picasso said? He said, steal with your eyes.
Yep, exactly. Awesome. More examples of events that are doing it the right way?
I was at the Fresh conference last year, and I thought they did a pretty good job. They had a guy called Uri. You probably know him from Slido. He was there on a sort of...
yes.
Yeah, he was like doing a live blog. And I mean, this guy was like super stressed out. They really worked him to the bone. But I really liked what he was doing because he was sort of creating a blog, kind of summarizing all the sessions and taking pictures at the same time. So they had a very sort of well-curated external reporting, and in that case you could see like it's worth investing in someone who understands all the sessions and understands all the content. And I thought that was really good, particularly for that kind of like keeping a nice record that looks good online of the event. So more from, I guess, an academic or sort of a learning perspective, I thought that was really good, really well done.
Awesome. Jay?
I have a lot of bad ones I've been to. I mean, of course, it's so much easier deserve to go to these various things and poo-poo on the people. I mean, it's a natural part of my DNA. I love bringing the solutions, not problems. So I'm struggling with this one. I know that I virtually have followed HubSpot. So I think that was a really good example that you guys gave. I know this year we're actually going to be attending it, a few of our team members. I just find that a lot of people really struggle with this, where the people that are putting on the event do a really, really good job with the speakers and the content, location, all the events and whatnot, but they miss significant opportunity. I mean, so for example, I've probably been to hundreds of these things. I'm always amazed what a poor job the conferences do before the event to help get people pre-engaged. I find myself struggling running throughout the event, trying to find people that I want to meet with. And obviously everyone's so busy with networking events and parties and what sessions they want to go to. It's just really hard to actually conduct business at some of these things. And obviously, I know for me, I go over a glass of wine is probably the best way to have these kind of conversations. It's not meant to be selling per se, but I just feel like I'm trying to think through my mind. Like if I've been to one conference yet that's done a really good job at social media type of work, I haven't seen that kind of stuff happen.
We'll invite you to some good ones.
I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just wanted to add that I see a lot of people doing it very well in an online community kind of style, but I don't see a lot of people that can kind of match that in the event, in the actual live event. And I guess that's pretty natural. When you're online, the engagement becomes so important through social media, but then to actually translate that to a live event, there's always sort of stumbling blocks, which are kind of interesting.
Awesome. Fantastic. So as we start to wrap up the show, I'm going to ask the last two questions that I always end up asking at the end of the show. And I love to hear from you guys. These pretty much can be anything related to events or not related to events. So feel free to go all over the place, or social media, anything really at all. But the first question I have for you guys is, if you had one tip, only one tip to share, what would you recommend as that one tip for planners for making their lives easier?
Wait, so the planners for the actual event, or people going to the event? Which
for the planners themselves, okay. Like something that you would recommend to make their lives easier, basically. Why don't we start with you, Miguel?
I'm going to say pick up the phone or go meet people face to face. I'm really sick of people organizing events and using email as this sort of like live chat, and you end up with like this inbox of hundreds of daily messages and so many misunderstandings and kind of, servers filled with large files and stuff like that. It's like, come on, just like call everybody. Let's have a little meeting. Let's have a little powwow and let's hash all this out. And then tomorrow we'll be in a much better place. So I'm going to say get off email and start talking to people face to face if you can.
Awesome.
I guess so. So my tip from the planner side is planning. I feel like getting all of those ticky-tack things done way up front before the event is just key. So for example, looking through your attendee list and figure out who are the big influencers in social media, and finding really creative ways way before the event to engage with them, encourage them, giving them guidance and support, and make them feel like VIPs as they should be. Obviously, everyone needs to be treated special, but the influencers that attend the events, they're often like behind the scenes secret. And if you knew of them before the event, you can find some really, really creative ways to leverage that. I know, I've attended a bunch of events, and I'm still always amazed, even as a speaker at events, how little is done with me before engagement. Again, as a speaker, it's so scary sometimes going to an event not really understanding the level of the attendees' understanding of my content. And so I find that almost every event that I speak at, just the nature of how I think, I spend a lot of time, at least a week or two before the event, looking through various different online channels to figure out who's attending and looking at their social profiles and just getting a sense of like what they're about and trying to engage them beforehand. I love tailoring my content around attendees so they will leave the event thinking, wow, that was worth my 15, 30, 60 minutes of my time, and I offer them insane value. But I just don't feel like it should be my responsibility only. I feel as the planner of the event, if you ask me to come to speak, regardless of paying me or not, make it easier for me to offer value to you and the attendees.
Can I ask you a question, Jay, about that?
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you ever feel like people take the piss, really? Like they just like, oh, you're speaking, you've got loads of followers. Can you just tell the world that you're coming so that like loads of people register for my event?
You know, I have honestly felt like I've been asked to speak at a couple events, mainly for that one thing. I have learned over the last year only, which is kind of sad to admit, about saying no. And so what I always do is when people come to me and ask me to speak about a certain topic, either being about entrepreneurship or business or digital marketing or family or whatever it might be, 2 years ago, Jay would say yes to everything. And I would go to the event and be like, why am I even here? Like, I'm offering zero value, and that's just not good for me or anyone. And so what I always do now is I ask for a call. And I loved your example about having a conference. Over email is just not an effective way to have some pre-planning done. And so I will ask the question almost first, okay, why do you want me to come? Like, what is the value that I could bring? And then 2, tell me about the ideal attending and what they're hoping to get out of me. So I could figure out a way to create alignment between the planners and the attendees. And if I could be that bridge that makes that event amazing, it makes me more passionate and excited about wanting to go. And once I commit, though, I'm all in. So regardless of being paid or not, I want to see the event be extremely successful. And knowing that I had a piece of that makes me feel really good. So I will overly promote things probably a little more than I should be sometimes, to almost the promotional element of it. And I'm not being paid to do that. I just really enjoy getting behind things. So I guess to answer your question, if the planner of the event is very strategic about who they ask to come based upon the attendees' needs and their pain points, if you connect those dots, it's going to be extremely valuable. And the speakers, if they're in it for the right reason, will more than happy without you asking for much of help, will automatically want to share why they're attending and trying to make the event a sellout.
Yep. Get it. Like it.
Yeah. Like it, live it, love it.
And you're one tip.
Well, two. I've got 2 things to say. One, 100% with Jay. I used to work in a nightclub, and one of the things we used to do is we'd memorize the guest list, the VIP guest list. We'd find, oh, nice socks. I'm not wearing any socks at all. Oh, I'm showing socks now. Oh, no.
That was for Nick.
That was for Nick, exactly. Nick knows I'm not wearing any socks. I'm not even wearing any pants, so we can stop right there. So, and I can't say the DI word again, so we got to stop right there. So I'm a firm believer in that. I say yes to way too many things. I always say that my mouth writes checks my body can't cash. But I do exactly that. I look at who's there. I look if I can add anything. I try and make every single talk different, so no one who attends me more than once will see the same thing. And I don't think a lot of people do that. And I also try and do a call beforehand with the organizer to see if there's any value that I can add to it, or if I'm just there because I've got a couple of followers on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and the podcast, and I think that it's going to help them get exposure. My number one tip to event planners, if you can, get an assistant, get someone to teach, get someone who can learn. It makes you a better person. It makes you a better teacher. You can pass on your knowledge to someone else. I'm a firm believer in mentorship. And also, a joy shared is a joy doubled, and a sorrow shared is a sorrow halved. So that's me.
I love it.
Still on that line. That was awesome.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, let's jump in the last question that I have for you guys as some parting knowledge for everybody. What cool resources do you guys want to share with the audience, whether it's, a cool blog post you just read, a cool app, maybe it's a new routine that you just developed, maybe it's a tip about not wearing socks, where did Jason get that hat, best wine to drink. What cool resources do you guys have to share? If they are online or something like that, just there you go. Donna Maria.
Nice. Donna Maria.
2012. If you guys want to post them over in the right-hand side, and I'll copy and paste them to make sure they're in the show notes afterwards. So, Jay, you want to start us off?
Oh my goodness, throw me on the spot there. I
can go if you like.
Yeah, go. I'm struggling with this question. It's a good one.
All right, so I'm gonna go a little off topic, but I think it's relevant. We introduced a tool at IMEX called Smugmug. It's a photo sharing site. It's really for like photographers to share their like wedding photos or event photos or whatever it is. It's very similar to Flickr, but it has a few features that we really felt worked for us, which was it has, for example, a link that you can give to your show photographers, and you can say, hey guys, as soon as you like download those photos onto your computer, upload your selection to this link. And then everybody in the company has immediate access to high quality photos. And then it does some clever stuff, like it shares whole albums to Facebook and things like that, so you can share all the photos. So in one relatively simple piece of software, we allowed the whole company to view high quality photos and then be able to share, because there's all these requests from exhibitors, from attendees, from speakers, like, did you take photos of this? Did you take photos of that? And we were getting really kind of bogged down to this. So this tool is like, I think it's like $200 a year. It's nothing, unlimited storage. You can share, you can hold like the high quality photos, and it also creates lower quality ones, so you can easily share those. And in doing that, it also allows tagging. So we tag the photos. Like if it's a press photo, we put press on it and it shows up in other galleries. So it has this kind of automatic gallery creation. And it was like one of these things we worked pretty hard on for about 3 months. But when we released it, everybody just went, great. I now have all these photos that I can share with everybody. You're amazing. You know, like this is the most amazing thing ever. And, you know, it's not even really a social media tool, but it's made our life super easy. So definitely recommend that.
Miguel, I guess on that topic real fast. So are the photos generated from the users through the tool?
No.
Or is it already listed on the various tools? The tool.
Essentially, anybody you share this link with could technically upload photos to that link.
Okay.
So it's like you share a link to a gallery, and anybody can upload to that. We only share that with our official photographers. So we might have like 3 different official photographers. But before, you know, each of them had their own computer, and then they upload to a system, and then it end up on these hard drives, and they kind of like go around the company. Now they just automatically, you know, as quickly as possible go off to the cloud, and then everybody has access to it. And we can all, you know, like our press team tags the photos, and then we put it into a press gallery that links to our website and that kind of thing.
Is there any protection on there, like watermarking
there's watermarking. You can control the download, and then if you're a photographer, you can also make people like pay for downloads or pay for the printing of the photos and stuff like that. So there's all these options.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's built for photographers, but we've used it for almost like a content management system. And the tagging is a little slow, so sometimes it's not immediate. But as long as you've got like a couple of hours for the tagging to catch up, it really works really well.
Well, I think on that point, though, Will, I mean, I guess for me, you know, thinking about, you know, just kind of, you know, following the KISS, you know, keep it simple, stupid type of stuff. But photography has been, I think, as a marketer for the event to help promote the events, the assets around video and photography has been one of the biggest challenges. And, you know, I guess for me, you know, we use Canva. I'm sure most of you are very familiar with that. And we just try to make things very simple for people, where we'll build out prior to events and whatnot templates, and then sharing access to that and just giving people support. I just find that people, if things are just too hard and are too complicated, they won't share at all. Mm-hmm. And that's where gets really challenging. So I'm really looking forward to look into this, Miguel, because I feel like that solves a huge pain point, not only for the event organizer, but also for the attendees.
Cool, glad to help. I'll put the link of our main photo thing on here, so you can have a look at what I've built it at the moment. And yeah.
Awesome. Any cool other resources, Jason, Jay? Feel free to
Jay?
Yeah, I threw out the canvas. I'm done.
Just drops mic, walks away.
Out of here.
Yeah, exactly. I've got 2 that I'm a big believer and fan of. The one is the Thrive Day Planner. I think that we're all, any entrepreneur, any startup, we're all looking to try and get as much time in we can in our 24 hours a day. And this allows you to do it. It's designed for busy entrepreneurs. It helps map out your strategy, your setting goals, your organizing business operations. And it's much better than the traditional day planner. And that is Thrive Day Planner. And the last one is something I'm testing out at the moment, which is something called Dash. Has anybody heard of Dash?
No.
Dash is, for someone like me, Dash is the most amazing thing ever. And in short, life's too short to wait for the check. So this lets you eat, drink, and dash. And you can pay direct on your phone, all set it up. Client says, we got that. Nope, it's all sorted. It pays, it logs it, it links it, and I can give it to my accountant, and it can come up as expenses.
Cool.
Wow.
Is that
So that's pretty cool.
Have you got? Is every Fiverr?
That's it.
Do people use Fiverr?
I live off Fiverr. And
So those who don't know what Fiverr is, you want to explain what Fiverr is?
It's you basically pay someone $5 or £3.67 currently to do all sorts of things. Usually it's stuff like build a logo, build a landing page, do a video animation, and the results are pretty impressive. And then you can usually pay people a bit more if you're quicker or something like that. But there's people all over the world providing services on Fiverr. It's FIVERR.com, and it's really, really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Very cool. Well, I just saw that we lost Jay, so I feel the feeling we have a couple seconds left before this goes to shite. So awesome resources, guys. I'm sure if there's any other resources they have, they'll shoot them to me over email, and I'll share those as well. But big, huge thank you to you guys for being here today. Absolutely massive amount of wisdom when it comes to social media and marketing for events. I just want to give a huge round of applause to you guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. You've been awesome.
Awesome. Well, for those who are tuned in right now, we do this 5 p.m. Eastern every single Wednesday right here on Blab. Whether we can figure out the technology or not, it's going to happen. So be sure to tune in next week. We have some awesome guests in place. Also, if you're tuning in via the recording or you're live right now, you can always catch the post show and including the all the links and everything that we talked about on our blog at helloendless.com/blog. So you go to helloendless.com/blog. That's where our recordings will be in your place to catch all of the links. But once again, I want to thank you guys again for being here today, and we will see you guys all next week. Adios.